The city of New Corinth stood as a solemn testament to a history rewritten by the victors. Its towering buildings, shrouded in perpetual smog, cast long shadows over the streets that whispered of a past too grim to remember. In this alternate timeline, where the defeated had risen to power, the city thrived under the guise of progress, its dark underbelly skillfully concealed. Amidst this somber landscape, private investigator John Marlowe navigated the rain-soaked streets, his trench coat blending with the hues of the city. Marlowe, known for his astuteness and unyielding resolve, had been tasked with a seemingly mundane case of infidelity. Little did he know, this case would unearth truths that lay buried in the annals of this altered world. The target of his investigation was Elizabeth Donnelly, a high-ranking official's wife, seen frequenting the Ember Lounge, a speakeasy that echoed the decadence of a bygone era. Marlowe's keen eyes watched from the shadows as Elizabeth, draped in a scarlet dress, whispered into the ear of a man not her husband. The man, shrouded in mystery, had a countenance that seemed eerily familiar to Marlowe, yet he couldn't place it. As Marlowe delved deeper into the affair, he found himself being drawn into a labyrinth of deceit. Photographs captured in the dead of night, clandestine meetings in derelict parts of the city, each piece of evidence led him closer to a revelation he wasn't prepared for. The turning point came one foggy night when Marlowe, following Elizabeth, stumbled upon a scene that would haunt him. In the dimly lit alley behind the Ember Lounge, Elizabeth lay lifeless, her scarlet dress now a canvas of crimson. Standing over her was the man from the speakeasy, his hands stained with the evidence of his crime. Marlowe, concealed in the shadows, watched as the man vanished into the night, leaving behind a chilling silence. This was no ordinary affair gone wrong. This was the work of a killer. His investigation took a drastic turn as Marlowe uncovered the identity of the mysterious man. He was none other than General William Harker, a celebrated war hero in this dystopian society. Harker, revered by the masses, was a symbol of the city's twisted ideology. But beneath the veneer of heroism lay a sinister truth. Marlowe's pursuit of Harker led him to the archives of New Corinth, where dusty tomes and forgotten records spoke of a history suppressed. It was here, among the relics of the past, that Marlowe stumbled upon a shocking revelation. Buried deep within a tattered family journal, he found his own lineage intertwined with that of Harker. The journal, belonging to Marlowe's great-grandfather, detailed a secret alliance between the Marlowe and Harker families during the city's pivotal war, a war that had reshaped the world. The revelation sent ripples through John Marlowe's understanding of his own heritage. He had always known his family had roots deep in New Corinth's history, but the connection to General Harker, a man now revealed as a cold-blooded killer, was a truth he struggled to digest. The journal, its pages yellowed with age, spoke of a covert pact, a union formed in the shadows of war, one that had evidently outlived the conflict. As Marlowe pieced together the fragments of his family's secret past, the image of General Harker began to morph in his mind. No longer just a celebrated war hero, Harker emerged as a key figure in a narrative that had shaped the very foundation of the dystopian society they inhabited. But why had Harker turned to murder? What drove a man, idolized by many, to such darkness? Marlowe's investigation took him deeper into the belly of the city. He ventured into sectors rarely tread by civilians, areas where the gleaming facade of New Corinth gave way to the scars of war and decay. Here, in these forgotten quarters, Marlowe hoped to find answers. It was in a dilapidated library, buried under piles of forbidden literature, that Marlowe unearthed another piece of the puzzle. Harker, before rising to military prominence, had been a scholar, passionate about the city's true history, a history that the current regime had meticulously erased. Harker's writings, filled with fervor and dissent, painted the picture of a man conflicted, torn between his ideals and the role he was forced to play. Marlowe couldn't help but feel a strange kinship with Harker. Both men, it seemed, were bound by the chains of their lineage, playing parts in a story written long before they were born. Yet, while Marlowe sought the truth, Harker had chosen a path shrouded in blood and secrecy. The night air was thick with fog as Marlowe revisited the scene of Elizabeth Donnelly's murder. The alley, now just another shadowy crevice in the city, seemed to whisper secrets. Marlowe's thoughts were interrupted by the sudden appearance of a figure emerging from the mist. It was a young woman, her eyes wide with fear, clutching a worn-out envelope. She claimed to have information about Harker, information that could not only shed light on the murders but also blow the lid off the city's hidden history. The envelope contained letters between Harker and a mysterious correspondent, discussing plans that were never meant to see the light of day. As Marlowe read the letters, the scope of Harker's plans began to crystallize. The general was not just a serial killer, he was a puppet master, pulling strings that controlled the very heart of New Corinth. His actions, cloaked in the guise of a national hero, were part of a larger, more sinister scheme. Marlowe knew that exposing Harker would not just shake the city, it would tear down the facade that had been meticulously built by those in power. But the truth was a double-edged sword, one that could also cut down Marlowe and his family's legacy. John Marlowe sat in the dim light of his office, the letters spread before him. Each word written by General Harker was like a piece of a sinister jigsaw puzzle, revealing a plan that went far beyond mere murder. These letters spoke of a coup, a radical plan to overthrow the current regime and replace it with a government controlled by Harker and his allies. The enormity of the revelation weighed heavily on Marlowe. He realized that exposing Harker could potentially plunge New Corinth into chaos. But the truth, no matter how bitter, needed to see the light of day. Marlowe's moral compass, deeply ingrained from his years as a private investigator, wouldn't allow him to turn a blind eye. As he delved deeper into the letters, Marlowe discovered references to a secret meeting scheduled to take place in 2 days. This meeting, likely a gathering of Harker's co-conspirators, could be the key to unraveling the entire plot. Marlowe knew he had to infiltrate this meeting. The following night, Marlowe, cloaked in the guise of a war veteran, made his way to the meeting location, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The air was tense as he slipped inside, his heart pounding with the realization of the risk he was taking. Inside the warehouse, Marlowe found himself among some of the city's most influential figures, all allies of Harker. He listened intently as they discussed their plans for the coup, the overthrow of the government, and the establishment of a new order under Harker's rule. But it was a revelation about Elizabeth Donnelly's murder that caught Marlowe's attention. It wasn't a crime of passion, as he had initially thought, but a calculated move by Harker. Elizabeth had discovered the plot and threatened to expose it. Her silence had been bought with her life. The meeting ended with a chilling finality. Marlowe left with a sense of urgency, knowing that time was running out. He needed to act fast. Upon his return, Marlowe immediately began drafting a report, detailing everything he had learned. He knew he had to be cautious, for the information he now possessed made him a target. He decided to contact an old friend in the media, someone he trusted to help expose Harker and his co-conspirators. But before he could send the report, his office door burst open. Standing in the doorway was a figure shrouded in darkness, the outline unmistakably that of General Harker. Marlowe's heart sank as he realized that his investigation had not gone unnoticed. Harker stepped into the light, his expression a mix of admiration and menace. He commended Marlowe for his detective skills, but warned him of the consequences of exposing the plot. The general made it clear, Marlowe had to choose between his duty to the truth and his own safety. The room was thick with tension as John Marlowe faced General Harker. The air was electric, charged with the unspoken understanding that the fate of New Corinth hung precariously in the balance. Harker's eyes, cold and calculating, bore into Marlowe, as if trying to unravel his thoughts. "John, you're a smart man," Harker began, his voice smooth and unnervingly calm. "You know the chaos your revelations will bring. Is your sense of righteousness worth the anarchy that will follow?" Marlowe's mind raced. He was acutely aware of the danger he was in, yet a part of him burned with the desire to bring Harker's sinister plans to light. He thought of the city outside his window, its people unknowingly on the brink of turmoil. "I believe in a new Corinth that knows the truth," Marlowe responded, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. "The people deserve to know who their heroes really are." Harker smiled, a chilling expression devoid of warmth. "And what about your family, John? Exposing me would drag your own lineage through the mud. Are you ready to face that consequence?" Marlowe felt the weight of his family's legacy, a legacy intertwined with the city's twisted past. But he realized that upholding the truth was more important than protecting a tainted honor. As the standoff continued, Marlowe's hand subtly moved towards the hidden drawer of his desk, where he kept a revolver. He knew that if things took a turn for the worse, he might need it. Harker, sensing Marlowe's movement, tensed. "I'd advise against that, John. This doesn't need to end in bloodshed." Marlowe paused, his hand hovering over the drawer. He knew that drawing his weapon could escalate things dangerously. Instead, he decided to appeal to Harker's sense of reason. "General, think about what you're doing. Is this really the legacy you want to leave behind? A city built on lies and murder?" For a moment, there seemed to be a flicker of doubt in Harker's eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. The general composed himself and replied, "This city needs a firm hand to guide it, John. My actions, though harsh, are necessary for its survival." The conversation was interrupted by the sudden ring of Marlowe's phone. Harker eyed him suspiciously as Marlowe answered. It was his contact in the media, ready to receive the report. Marlowe knew he had to act fast. With a swift movement, he grabbed the revolver and pointed it at Harker, while simultaneously hitting the send button on his computer, transmitting the report. "It's over, Harker. The city will know the truth." Harker, caught off guard, took a step back. The standoff reached its zenith, with both men aware that the next few moments would decide their fates. In the tense standoff, the sound of the sent email echoed through the room like a gunshot. John Marlowe, revolver in hand, faced General Harker, whose facade of control was finally cracking. The air was thick with anticipation, each man aware that the outcome of this confrontation would alter the course of New Corinth's future. "You've made a grave mistake, John," Harker growled, his composure slipping. "You think exposing me will save this city, but it will only plunge it into deeper chaos." Marlowe kept the revolver trained on Harker, his resolve unwavering. "It's time for change, Harker. New Corinth deserves a future free from your manipulation." Before Harker could react, the sound of sirens pierced the night. Blue and red lights flashed through the office windows, signaling the arrival of the police. Marlowe had made an anonymous tip prior to the meeting, suspecting it might come to this. Realizing his situation, Harker made a sudden move, but Marlowe was quicker. He fired a warning shot, halting Harker in his tracks. The police burst into the room, guns drawn, and apprehended the general. As Harker was led away in handcuffs, the gravity of what Marlowe had accomplished began to sink in. He had exposed one of the city's most powerful figures, potentially averting a coup that would have cost countless lives. But the victory was bittersweet. The revelation of Harker's true nature and the impending political upheaval meant that New Corinth was on the cusp of tumultuous times. In the days that followed, Marlowe watched as the city grappled with the truth. Protests erupted in the streets, demanding reform and the truth about their history. The media, fueled by Marlowe's report, uncovered more conspiracies, leading to several high-profile arrests. Marlowe, hailed as a hero by some and a traitor by others, found little solace in his newfound notoriety. The revelation about his family's past and its ties to Harker had taken a personal toll. He grappled with the realization that his pursuit of truth had forever altered his life and the city he called home. In the end, Marlowe decided to leave New Corinth. The city's skyline, once a symbol of progress and power, now stood as a reminder of the cost of truth and the fragility of justice. He packed his belongings, his family journal tucked safely among them, a reminder of the past and its inescapable shadows. As he drove away from the city, the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a new light on New Corinth. It was a city at the crossroads of change, its future uncertain but its path forward illuminated by the truth. Marlowe took one last look in the rearview mirror, a sense of closure washing over him. He had played his part in the city's history, and now it was time to start anew, somewhere far from the shadows of the past.